In the attack on map 240, which was initially completely occupied by the Big Alliance, PREUSSEN first had conquered the narrow strip above the river in the north of the map against massive resistance, and then, without any significant resistance, the edge strip in the west, thus permanently securing access to the Western Highway. Still, the many home bases of PREUSSEN players give the false impression that PREUSSEN has already conquered more. But only half of the blue dots to be seen are conquered bases. On the way along the left edge of the map, PREUSSEN then came across the railroad line. Big seemed to have been waiting for this. Journeyman had pre-produced quite a few trains and they made it really hard for PREUSSEN. We all know that Studio Hoppe has significantly reduced the strength of the M16 against trains. They don't look as good as they did in earlier videos. Journeyman came with his trains, taking advantage of their long range. If he received opposition, he withdrew the trains to the protection of a well-developed base. On this Monday, due to my job, I could not record without gaps. Therefore, I cannot show the fall of the first railroad bases in the video, but already these pictures give an idea that it took considerable efforts to break the resistance of Big here as well. If it was about the defense of his own base, Journeyman could still show real effort. However, relatively few players were still active on the Big side, while the PREUSSEN players were further spurred on by their continued success. Securing the Western Highway as a reliable supply route was another important milestone for PREUSSEN. Now it was a matter of widening the narrow strip somewhat in order to better protect it against attacks in the long term. Among other things, this also involved fighting a special base. That was on Monday morning. The player was not online at that time. Like many, he obviously had to work. The battle for this very well-built base was unspectacular, because no other big player came to his aid. I mention this base fight only because Special was to play a very significant role shortly thereafter. You can see how fast PREUSSEN was able to take fully developed bases in the meantime. What you can only guess at is the huge amount of ammunition that the many Karls constantly needed. The use of many Karls would be pointless if the ammunition ran out at the end of the battle. This makes these battles a logistic challenge more than anything else. In the process, players have settled on specific roles. Many simply always deliver breeders as cannon fodder. Small players, of course, like to contribute launchers, which is of course limited to 50 a day. Other players supply the MP4 ammunition transporters. These are built on other maps where that player already has so many bases that he can produce the transporters from normal unaccelerated production around the clock in construction loops. The same player then has a single base on another map where he produces fuel exclusively using accelerators and transfers it to the MP4 production map. This is the cheapest way to get the gigantic amounts of fuel that this task requires. Then he sends his MP4 across the highway to the battle map. There the ammunition is fired by the Karls, and afterwards the MP4s are cannon fodder there. Loading takes too long, and the building loops required to do so eat gold. Two players only built helicopters to protect the Karl. For them, it was important to get helicopter bases quickly to avoid having to bring the helicopters across the highway. There are 4 helicopters, neither require many military points nor resources. However, moving the helicopters eats enormous amounts of fuel. Of course, there are players who build defenses against jamming attacks, such as tigers, mauls, kings, M16s, willies, etc. The many home bases can quickly build insane amounts of willies if needed. PREUSSEN made rapid progress with more bases. A look at the minimap alone impressively shows the progress. It should be emphasized once again, these are no beginner bases level 1 with a few defense towers. These are all level 3 bases with mostly 30 defense towers, often with side towers, detectors and jammers. Without opposition, every base battle is kind of the same. Actually, PREUSSEN came to this map because they were tired of boring completing maps and were looking for more thrills. There was that in the beginning, but in the meantime there was no more resistance. The game's commentary sums it up quite well.
Jeder Widerstand ist absolut zwecklos.
PREUSSEN made such good progress that it was decided to split the players into 2 teams from now on. One fought in the north, another team in the south. There was no moving troops from north to south and back. One simply had everything twice: cars, ammunition, helicopters, breeders, etc. This accelerated the progress on the map again considerably. At this point it looked as if PREUSSEN would be able to take the map in passing, but the next day Big did something that changed the task for PREUSSEN enormously and suddenly turned it into a gigantic challenge that absolutely no one at PREUSSEN had expected. But more about that in the next episode of this little video series.